Elmer, you gonna draft a tree for him?
Yeah, we're gonna get something.
Yeah, let's get one of these up here and I'll.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, I've got plenty. I've got plenty of that deal.
I'm gonna start off, and then we're gonna different ones of us is gonna do this, and we're gonna watch them and criticize them and talk about them. I think this first one here, I'm gonna use this machine on this small one just for the heck of it. Let me go get some sign wood. We got to have some sign wood put on that thing.
Trim all this stuff off.
But anyway, let me get some sign wood here.
Until these come
It's
across.
familiar with everything about this deal. Frank, I know you know all about this deal.
I'm about as ignorant as an Oreo cookie when it comes to this.
We have some of those over there too.
You know, this time of year, if you're gonna graft,
Take 146 up
and usually about the 15th of March
and get the rye and cut out.
is whenever I try to graft on stuff that's been dormant all
Call me
winter.
and I'll tell you how to
But
get
you
there.
got to cut your sign wood about last
Yeah, it's got
December.
the address. You
I always try to do mine about Christmas time.
That'll probably
That way
send you through
You
Liberty.
got plenty of time. You don't have to forget. You cut your sign wood. You just cut this stuff and you
come in Beaumont.
wrap it in a
Come in Beaumont.
damp towel and put it in the refrigerator to keep those buds dormant, to keep them from putting out.
So you dip both ends in wax?
Well, if it's not a terminal bud, if it's a terminal bud, you don't have to. Of course, I dip the bottom end to see
Just to cut it.
keep it from drying out. But this is all Texas Star here stuff.
36 and 120.
I was going to try to do this one, and I believe this will be large enough. I'll use this machine on this one here. And now it's pretty important to be reasonably clean with this grafting. You get too nasty and dirty, you're gonna get a lot of bacteria in it, and you just ain't gonna get a take on it. I'm gonna cut this. Now, ordinarily I'd graft it down here, but to get the size about right, I'm gonna get up here. And then this little old machine here, it's handy for this size from 1/2 inch down to say about 3/16. This thing was made in Switzerland. They're not cheap, so I think they still paying a patent on these things. But you just put it on there and you'll cut your groove in there. You see that? And then you'll get your sign wood. Now, I've got this one here. It's about the right size. And I never use over 3 buds, and most of the time I'll use 2 buds. I'll just get a good place, and I'll cut that bottom off with that paragraph on there. And I'll get it up, and I'll cut just above that second bud. And then I'll dip. And this is abandoned cultivator here, and that's just paraffin. And I use a lid or something like this, so you won't have very much depth to it, and you won't let it go down so far and cover your bud, which is a bad deal. And I always like to be looking at the bud whenever I'm making this cut here. And I'll turn that bud up, and you got to put it, y'all can't even see this thing here, but you put it in here and you line it up just right.
Now, normally, is it mandatory to have the female on your rootstock? Or can you reverse that?
Well, I don't know. You
Sometimes
might get it to take,
upside down.
you may have to turn the bud upside down. Well, I never tried that now. I just don't know. I don't,
Like I said, Oreo
you reckon
cookie.
it'd make any difference, Bob? I kind of got my doubts about it making any difference, but I can't imagine that being turned the other way and trying to work it. Boy, you come up with some questions like me. But say this was smaller and it's gonna be smaller than this, you just pull it over to one side. But this one here now, it's pretty close to the same size as that other one. And you just line up one side and just forget about that other side. But you line up that one side. Now I go more by feel than I do see, because I can't see nothing. But I put that on there like that. Then these rubbers, you get a pound, I think, for about $14, but I think that's just awfully expensive. So I cut them half in two and use half. I'll give you the bill with that, something. I got my nephew over there. He knows what I'm talking about. But I order that 5-inch rubber, and then I cut it half in two. And you just put it on there, and you got to get them fingers just right. And you start going around that thing. I'll give that on up. And then just take it and you put it back underneath there.
He's just tying a knot.
The rubber is really just insurance.
It's just to hold it snug.
That's right.
Yeah.
It'll lay out probably if you don't put that rubber on there. Now this is a medical tape here, and we found this to be the best thing it is to use for grafting. Is that what you use, Bill?
Yes, sir.
This paraffin. And it stretches. And now, really, whenever I'm grafting, and these are going to stay outside, and I put this on there, I cover that first bud, and I have found that I get a better tape this time of year if I leave that second bud open. I don't even put the tape on it. Do you put the tape on your second one?
No, sir.
I started doing that.
I usually put 3 buds on and cover one.
Well, I was putting 3 buds, and I started using 2 buds. I'm just that stingy, you know.
Well, it's You gonna show them a cleft graft?
Yeah, we're gonna do one of those.
Elmer, I got a question.
Don't you go.
I'll plug back up.
Let me do a
When you wrapping that thing, and it like, if you say you're gonna graft later in the summer,
Well, we're gonna do one like that too after a
but
while.
what if you go all the way up with that tape,
Oh, you got to in the summertime.
okay.
Oh, yeah, you got to in the summer. We're gonna do one like that if you don't get in a hurry now. But yeah, we're gonna do one, and but you've got to go up then. You wanna do this?
No, you go ahead.
Oh.
You're doing fine.
Now, like Bill says, we all got our little ideas about how to do this, and we got our special way to do it. Now, I bet he probably don't even do it like I do. But now this is handed to here. But I'll get down here below all of this, and I like to use a saw. I don't use a pruning shear on this big stuff because you just scald it. And I like to cut it on a little angle. Now, I don't know whether that does any good or not.
I don't either, but I do it.
But, well, it kind of makes sense to me. And then I always put the graft over on the high side. If it don't do anything else, it at least lets the water shed off and it won't go in that crack so bad. But, and I really believe the sap has more of a tendency to go to that high spot than it does to that low spot. And that's the reason why I put it on the high side. And of course, I always trim it just a little bit. Now you've got to have a sharp knife to do this stuff.
That's the reason I use a box knife. And just keep changing blades.
Yeah, that's a good deal, but that runs into money.
Throw a blade away.
You see, I use that old blade there for that split with it. And sometimes they'll kind of mess up on the inside. You have to kind of trim them up a little bit. But now this is what ain't all that easy to do. Now, some people, do you use to turn the bud when you graft it? I usually cut it off.
I don't put if it's waxed, and I got enough buds, I cut it off.
Yeah, well, that's what I
Cut it
usually
just
do.
above that other bud.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just want to be sure I'm kind of in line. Yeah. And then, of course, you did.
I know you know how to graft by looking at them trees out there.
Well, you don't know what. Now that's, and another thing, I always turn the bud up. And now, I had one fellow a few years ago, he said, man, that sign wood you gave me must have wasn't no count. He said, I didn't get a one to take. And I got the question, I ain't gonna tell you the name, but he called me back in a few days and said, I found out what was the problem. I put them on there upside down. And you know, he told me that for a fact, but always have your buds turning up. And if you get that bud, y'all can't see over there, but you get right side that bud. Now, this is a critical part right here. You don't want to whittle on that thing. And then you turn it over, and you come down on the back side. And now, always make the front side where the bud is a little bit thicker than the back side. The back side, you see, it's thin, and the front side is a little bit thicker. And then, of course, you just put it on here. Now, on this big rootstock, sometimes they got bark is a little bit thick on it, and you got to put it just a little bit behind the bark in order for the canyon layers to line up, because this is so much older than this is here. And then, now that way I can't get by with a short rubber. I got to use this full, that's the reason why I hate to use this big rootstock. But you got to put that rubber on to hold that together.
Now, can you use regular rubber bands?
Yeah, when I first started, I couldn't afford these. I went to Walmart, got them in their packages.
Well, why you didn't stay with them?
Well, I got to making so much money selling. Yeah, Lord. But I ain't no joking. I use a regular pocket knife. You see how this one wore down? That's what I used when I first started. But this is a regular grafting knife. Y'all ever hear of a broad axe? Mm-hmm. That thing's made like a broad axe. You shot on just one side. The other side's flat. And it just makes a lot of difference on that grafting. You can cut that fine wood so much easier. I always try to get down below that split there so that that'll seal all that off. And then, like I say, I cover that first bud. And then I put it a little bit extra up on that top there because that's where that sunlight will break that down the first thing right there. But that ought to be a finished product there. Okay, you want to do one?
You'll have to look the other way, cause
You ain't gonna do it like this, huh?
I'm gonna make you nervous when I get after your paraffin down there.
Oh, what you use?
I use paraffin. Oh, that's already grafted. This is growing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This one over here.
Oh, we'll get it, what about,
This is one I knocked out of the box.
yeah, get him that one over here. Those are,
Is that what that's for?
That's
Yeah.
what that's for.
and I tell you, yeah, all of these is, all of this, I was just gonna let some of y'all take these that we grafted and you take them home with you.
Well, number one, I don't like to graft this high. I like to keep mine within the first 8-10 inches. So what I do, I come in here with my cutters and I turn with the anvil side up and the tree this side. If it's big like that, I saw it with the saw. But I turn the anvil side up and I cut that sucker like that. And that's a discard. The grafting knife, oh, I better use this one. To split
Oh,
this,
yeah.
to split this thing, I try to look down on top of it, and I want to go straight through the wood, straight through the heart, and be in the center of the wood. And if this heart's over on this side, I don't go straight through like this. I don't go through the heart like that and leave a big side. I get around here and try to go right straight through that heart when it's right straight through the wood.
Got another one here. Have I got my big knife?
No, that's too little. We'll do it with this one, Elmer.
Just don't use my good one.
Oh, I ain't. I've got to get it opened up and still leave some knife blade out of it. Now I take my sign wood. What is this, good sign wood?
Well, I thought it was all right. I've been using it. It ain't no count either.
Like your knife, Elmer. Just like your knife.
Here's a good one. Like you say, he doesn't use the top. I don't either. And the hormones are really congregated away from that top and away from this. And if this is where it's attached to the tree at, when you go to put it up, well, I don't use this bottom part either. But if it's a long one and cut it in two, well, then I'll use the bottom part. But I generally take 3 buds.
You just ain't got much confidence that I have.
I know it. You got more confidence. Now, I gotta have a sharp knife. Is this sharp?
Yeah, sure. Don't cut your fingernail. You gonna whittle on it, man.
No, I ain't. That sharpened on the wrong side. Anyway. You work it like that, don't you?
Yeah, man, I tell you.
Yeah, Elmer, you knew what you was talking about.
If you put your name on that graph.
All right.
You're gonna be out of sunwood in there.
That's the reason I use 3 buds.
You ain't taping all that stuff, are you?
That's the reason I use 3 buds, because I know it takes them. But with a little stock like this, and that these barks are essentially the same thickness, so you can just flush this side out over here. I don't use rubber bands. Turn you back, Elmer.
Oh,
You had to turn
that
your back.
stuff's $30 a roll.
I start down below my split place, because I want to seal all this whole thing off. And I go around a couple of times, and I work it up to the top. And then I take this thing, and I'm gonna go around from the top, and I'm gonna grab this thing and hold it down, and I'm gonna make a string around the top of that thing. And I come around here,
That's a rubber band there, and that band.
and as I twist that thing, it makes a string that holds that thing together. And if you could look down in here, you'd see this. The slit on this side is completely closed, and this one's open. I got a little too much air. Then I come around here, and I stretch it again, and I get up over this. I try not, if I'm up here, I try not to pull on that thing and pull that graft sideways. So I go real easy here until I get back down here. And I had a little too much, Elmer, but that's the way I do
Don't
it.
worry about it.
Roll it back up on the
I
road.
hope you sleep tonight.
And then I take my hand and I do this. And that seals that thing together, and that's a sealed off place. And then on the end of that thing, I put this. And I roll that up over that bud. And that bud will grow right through it. And that's a finished product.
That's the same way I do it.
That's the way you must have taught me.
I remember showing you way back there.
But hey, you graft, if you got them out setting up, and I got a bench that I work off of with a carousel on it. I set this thing on that carousel, and I can roll it around any way I want it. And then when I get it taped, it takes about 5 minutes. I guess you could probably graft 60 an hour if you worked at it.
12 an hour.
You can't do
12
it
an hour.
8 hours so hard.
No,
Oh,
well,
he sound like John Harrington now.
Yeah, that's right. He did 300 an hour, he told me.
Grafting? About 12 an hour is about what I can get, 10 to 12, if I stay at it. But anybody, especially women, they got a lot more delicate hands than my old bony arthritis, twisted around hands. I have a hard time getting everything in shape, and it's just getting it where you need it and getting it closed up there, and that's all there is to it.
Well, I'm having a little trouble on that big rootstock, but on that little stuff, in that greenhouse, I know 98% taken.
That's good.
I didn't have a bit of problem on the.
First thing you gotta have is some good sign wood.
Oh, yeah.
In the right time of year.
You can't make a dead stick lift.
No. And you can't put them on the upside down.
Well, let me ask you about top graft. We're gonna top graft trees.
I'm gonna go get one and we're gonna do one.
Okay.
Put it in the ground.
No.
Well, I ain't gonna do it right now. No, yes you are. But this is the way I do it.
That's what I said.
But now this is gonna be, say, June, July graft. And say this is already out in the field and it's already growing. This ain't really a real good one, but it's not bad. But the best I guess I could come up with is to get right about in here and cut this off and graft it there. But in the summertime, you have got to leave something or another to feed those roots. That's all there is to it if you're going to do it then.
Nursery then.
Yeah. This is so tight up in here, I couldn't hardly really do this like I would have liked to, but that's all right. What'd you do in my pocket now?
It's on this side of it.
I'm sure I didn't steal it.
And everything else is the same deal, really, for me. Now, this is probably, since I grafted this in January, this is probably hardened off enough that I can use this as sign wood here. But it's got to be hard enough, and really, say you just went to a tree and you cut that off. These leaves look a little better up here.
What is that off of, Bill?
This is off of the thing we had there, we'll go ahead and
This
23.
that one over there that's got the ribbon on it.
I don't know if it's hard enough or not. But the first thing you want to do is, when you take it off of that tree, is to get these leaves off from it. And don't cut your buds. And now this, I'll go ahead and I'll leave all 4 or 5 buds on the thing. And then, of course, you just cut it off. But you got to get those leaves off from it just as soon as you cut it off of the tree. If you don't, it's just going, the leaves are going to suck that moisture right out of your sign wood and you won't have anything. But everything else is pretty much the same way. You turn the bud up to you, I do. And then, boy, it really ain't hard enough off. But you see, if this was on a tree up until June, it would be a whole lot harder and easier to work. But and then you just put it in there just like the other, and have your bud to the outside, and put it down in there. And as a rule, you can just go about flush on the side. But I always, I like to put the rubbers on there. That way, it's just good insurance. That's all there is to it. And it don't use so much tape. It's not near as expensive. And that's, you want to make money when you're fooling with Mayhaws.
I know that's right.
It's kind of hard to work this up in amongst these limbs, because ordinarily those limbs wouldn't be that close. Ordinarily I try to make few more rounds, but that's so close there, and I got the camera on there, that makes me nervous. But now it does take a little bit more of this tape, but not no 3 foot. Just get down low and wrap that. And now this, you have got to go right on up. And now you don't want to get this too thick on there, or those buds won't burn through it. But you go right on up and you wrap everything. And then those buds, they'll just come right on through. But you know, that sun's pretty hot June and July, so you don't want it too thin, paraffin, but you don't want it too awful thick either. But you got to go on and seal the whole thing up. And then after this goes good, and now another thing, when you're doing this out in the field, it's wise to always get you a bamboo stake or something and tape it to the side of this and let it run on up above this. If you don't, the birds come along and they'll light right on that, and the first day it'll break your graft.
No diggers are the worst in the world.
That's right. I don't know why, but they got the light right up on top of that graft, and it'll break it off every time. But after this gets put out good, and usually it's got to go through that first growing season, and then in that winter you can come back and cut all these nurse limbs off. Now there's one up here that I did last year, and I think I did it in July. And here pretty quick, I'm going to cut those nurse limbs off on this. Now, you just got to, if you got some nurse limbs way down low, of course you can make this graft lower, but it's important that you have those nurse limbs on it. But that ought to be enough nurse limbs to feed that, don't you think?
That's no tree.
Is there a size limitation on your receiving stock?
On the rootstock?
Right.
Not really. Now, some people does bark graft, some does bud graft, but I have grafted onto 1.5 inches, and I've got them to take. What's the largest you ever grafted on?
About 1.5 inches if I'm going to use a
With the
cleft
clay.
graft.
And some,
Anything larger than that, I go underneath the bark with the bark.
and I have used 2 whenever it gets up pretty good size rootstock.
When you use a bar graft, are you similar to that, except you're not a wedge, you're
Well,
more...
I just never, I tried it one time and I didn't have any luck, and I never did do it no more after that. So,
I'll show you what I do for a bark graft.
what about bud graft? You ever do a bud graft?
I've done them, but I don't get good success with them for some reason or
My
another.
fingers just won't cooperate with me on that.
They're going to lay this sucker down and saw it off.
What's the wax for? That's to seal those ends. Dip those ends in there, seal it off. You know, dry that, yeah, fine. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. We're going to watch it.
Protect your end. Mr. Jackson, you want to use
Is that sharp?
I can flip the blade if it's not.
All right.
Yeah, that's those things are expensive, ain't
This was free, my sister gave it
they?
there.
I don't have.
I'm just going to use about a couple of buds here. And I always cut back below. You don't put much wax on them either, do you?
No, I don't guess, ain't nothing good to seal that in. That bark's good.
On a bark graft, I don't know if I know how to open this.
Well, that's a complicated looking thing.
On a bark graft, I go, if this is the bud, and this is what I want on the outside, I start back here on this side, about, well, according to how big this is and this is, say it's a pecan limb as big as your finger, start back about 1.5 inches, but this one I'm gonna start about 1.25 inches. And you go down in, halfway down in. All right, I get this cut to where I got a good flat surface here. I go down into it and then flat out. And then on this side, I sharpen it off and to where I got sharpened all the way down till that's a thin point. And I lay this up on a flat spot. And on each side of that, I go down with that knife. And hopefully this sap's moving up enough for, you need the sap moving up before you do this for this bark to slip. I don't know if that bark's gonna come off of there without breaking or
It
not.
looks like it's pretty tough. I didn't see a bunch of new growth on that, so I doubt it's slipping.
He'd give me a dead tree to graft. Anyway, your sap needs to be coming up good before you start this, so this will slip loose. And that's not gonna slip loose. But then you slip this right down in underneath that.
The
to
short
about-
side out.
with this bud side out. And then you let that this lap that I couldn't get loose, it comes up to here,
Okay.
just to pass that, and you cut it off. And if you're doing pecans, you get a little bitty finishing nail and just nail that sucker on there to where it don't move. And then you put wax around it, or you, according to how tight you are, you put paraffin, or just seal it off and seal this top some way or another. And that's the way I do a bark graft. But the sap has to be moving good, or you can't do bark grafts. If you're gonna graft pecans, not before April 15th. Probably around May the 1st on pecans. You need that bark moving, sap moving real good before you stick that under there.
I read the book.
Did you get it
said
to
when
come
they
out?
At least get about 1.5 inches long
Yeah.
on the tree.
It
didn't
won't
slip, did
It
it?
won't slip. It's too dormant to bark graft.
Okay,
But we went through it anyway.
okay, well, that's the main thing.
I'm not educated enough to close that.
That's just a lot, please.
I don't wanna leave
Have to
them,
watch my tools.
I don't wanna leave these cutters where you can get all to them.
This is one right here that I just don't know that I have ever seen fail. And I don't know if I can do it or not, so. Old Bobby's got me so nervous, but if you just catch that thing and make you a pretty good cut on it, golly, what do you need that with?
You're not whittling it?
Yeah, I'm beginning to whittle it. My knife's dull, he used my knife. But, get everything pretty much right, on this thing.
What is that rootstock you use? I mean, what?
That's just Mayhaw, just Mayhaw.
And you just go out and harvest it off the tree, I mean, just cut them off the end of the limbs.
Yeah, you got to get, new growth, 1 year old growth. Boy, that bud right there's missing, and that's gonna be bad, but I can at least show you about this.
Would something else take that graft, or is there another?
Anything in that family. Just about anything that's got thorns on it, you can graft Mayhaw to it. Anything in the hawthorn family. You just take this and get inside that bud and you go down the same, boy, now it's getting done. The same way. And then you just put it side of that and try to line up one side, and you tape that to that, and then put that paraffin on that, and I don't believe I've ever had one of them fail. Now, I don't know why it is, but it's hard to hold it and put that rubber on it. But if you could get it just kind of, because if it if you even move it a little bit, it's still, one place is gonna be lined up with that kindling layer. And it'll take, now that's on this small stuff like this right here.
Yeah, but that long angle cut, you got a lot
Yeah,
more
that
odds.
long-
Tongue that you'll have something to hold, it will hold itself in place.
How's
It's a
that?
whip graft, if you
Oh,
put a
yeah,
tongue on
yeah,
it.
that's
you
the reason why you've got to really, you know, you got to wrap this good with that rubber so it'll hold it in
But
place.
if you put a tongue on it, it'll just.
Oh, yeah,
wedge it
yeah,
together
yeah,
and you take
but
it.
that just takes a little more
Takes
time,
a little
you
more
know.
time.
And I never have food with that, I always just stick it on here
Stick
like
it on there
and
get
wrap
it in
it.
place.
And like I say, I've
Yeah,
never
it's-
had one of them.
It's a good draft.
And it's just, it don't take no tools much to do that. And if you got some little bitty stuff, it's about the only way you can do it. You can't always clamp it, so you can split it, you know. Work it too.